In this video, I'm going to show you how to make this cute little nameplate for your cakes. Hi, it's Karolyn. If you want to learn how to bake and decorate amazing cakes, and I would love for you to join me by hitting subscribe and the bell. So before we get started, I just want to talk about my shirts again. And I know I keep talking about them, but I'm so excited about it. I made these on spring, and there's links below. You can click the products. By the way, if it just says that it comes in extra small or small, just click the product, click view on spring, and then it'll take you to spring where they are available up into size like 2X. And Ange sent me a picture of her wearing the shirt, and I love it so much. So if you get a shirt and you wear it, send me a picture. I would love to see. So this week I am making a little name plaque, and a couple months ago somebody asked me how I made it because I had it on another cake, and I said the next time I make it I will film it. So I just want to show you how I do that. And also, I've had people ask me how to stick decorations, heavier decorations to cakes so they won't slide off. So at the end of this video, I'm going to show you how I do that as well. So let's get into the video. This is the cake that I'm putting it on, and I want to measure the area to make sure that I print out the name and the circle big enough. So I have a little ruler here, and I think I'm going to do 3.25 inches diameter of the circle, and then that would mean the name would have to be slightly smaller. Just to show you, in case you don't have a circle cutter as big as you want to make this, you can always Google circle clip art and then just click on images and just find a circle or whatever shape that you want to use. You don't have to use a circle. And over here, I mean, I have a PC, not a Mac. If you have a Mac, this is going to be totally different. I'm not sure how to instruct using a Mac, but I'm on a PC. I'm just going to right click the picture, go to copy image. I have Microsoft Office that came with my computer. I'm going to open up a blank document and then right click and click paste. Left click to highlight it and then right click crop. And I'm just going to drag it to the size so it's right at the edges. And now right click, go to size and position, and I want to make it 3.25. Good. And now I want to do their name. The name is Reagan, so I'm going to make this, let's try 100 point, R-A-E-G-A-N, and I'm going to highlight this entire thing, press shift and left click. And I think I'm going to use Bromello font. I download it on DaFont, and I can put a link in the description below. And that looks good. And somebody told me, and thank you so much, in order to see if this fits, I can right click on the circle and go to wrap text and to behind text. So you see that it's a little too big. I want to make the name a little smaller. And if I go to 80, that looks like it should fit. So same thing. Yes, that'll fit in there. So this is the perfect size. Now, if I'm just showing you how to do it this way, if you don't have a circle cutter that's big enough, because if you want to make this really big, usually there's not circle cutters that big. So I'm just going to give you the option to do it this way, and you can always use a circle cutter or whatever other cutter that you want. So I'm going to print this out. And let's take this over to the table and make it out of fondant. All right, to start, tools that I need. I have my cutting board here. Underneath the cutting board is the piece of non-slip pad or shelf liner. That way my cutting board's not going to slide around as I use it. I have a wet paper towel in the corner, and I have an X-Acto knife, and I have a couple X-Acto knives. And when I wipe off the X-Acto knife on the wet paper towel, it gets rid of the fondant that sticks to the blade. I have my favorite tool, a Dresden tool. One end comes to a point, one end is a little flatter. They both curve up, and I use this for tracing. I love this tool. This one's hard to find. I can find a similar one and link it below. And I have a needle tool. I don't always use it, but I always have it available. So the colors of this cake are teal, light pink, dark pink, and purple. And I have a little black and white added. So I rolled out fondant really thin. All of my fondant is mixed with Tylose powder. I use it in this little container, however the label fell off. But I've been using Wilton Gum Tex. It's basically the same thing. It's a fine powder, and you just sprinkle a little bit into the fondant, knead it in the fondant, roll it out and let it sit. So this fondant has been sitting for about 20 minutes. Look, it's hard. It's going to hold its shape. It's going to have clean cuts. It's going to be easy to make nice decorations out of this. So I cut the name and the circle, and I can put the name behind the circle, and I can see that it's the perfect size. It's going to fit in there. Actually, I want to make the name purple. So same thing. I rolled it out super thin, and there's phyllos mixed in with this marshmallow fondant. It's been sitting out for about 20 minutes. Lay this down on top, and what I'm going to do, you know my process if you see my videos. I'm taking my Dresden tool. I'm using the curved part. I'm not putting the sharp end in on here because it's going to poke a hole. And I'm just going to trace around the entire name and make sure you get the inside of the letters as well. And like I always say, you want a medium pressure. If you press too hard and you poke a hole in the fondant, when you go to cut the fondant out with the letters out of the fondant, it's hard to cut around that hole. It's super annoying. It happens to me all the time. That's why I tell you to do it. So I'm just using a medium pressure to trace the entire name. And I'm keeping my other hand in place to make sure that this does not shift as I'm tracing, because it's super annoying once it starts to shift, then you can't find the correct place where it goes. Once you're done, hold your bottom hand down and peel it back. Make sure all of the lines transferred. And I can't really see this part of the E. That way you can put it back down and retrace any parts that you need to. Because if you just lift it up and then try to put it back down, it's difficult to see where it's supposed to go. Now I'm just going to take my X-Acto knife, and I want to cut out the lettering. So I always recommend that you cut the center pieces first. It's a lot easier to cut the center pieces out before you cut the entire thing out. And when you cut them out, the fondant gets a little jagged. So what I like to do is take my Dresden tool or whatever tools that you have and just smooth out your cuts. It just makes your pieces look so much better if you take the time to smooth away all the jagged edges. And now that the center pieces are all cut and smooth, I can cut the entire name out. So I added the purple coloring to this fondant, and I should have let it sit out a little longer or added a little more Tylose. So it's dragging as I cut, and it's super annoying, but I don't feel like starting all over. So when you're doing this, like look, as I cut, it's hard to explain, but the fondant moves with the knife. And in order to prevent that from happening, I'm making shorter cuts. So I'm not just dragging the knife the whole way through. I'm starting here and then I drag it up, and as it starts to move, I'll stop and then start here. And you know, so I'm doing shorter spurts. It makes it a little easier to deal with when your fondant is too soft, because sometimes you just don't want to start all over. Now that's all cut out. Since this fondant is soft, it's probably going to be sticking to all the letters. So I want to carefully start to cut it and peel it away, making sure that I don't distort any of the lettering. My God, it's so annoying when it's like this. Ah! This is why adding the Tylose is so important, because look, it's a nightmare. It's freaking sticking. And your cuts are not as clean when the fondant isn't as hard. So this is a mess. Now I have to take the time to smooth it all out. What I'm going to do is put it back on the paper. It's a little easier to handle when it's on here. Now, like, do you see how this is all jagged? The inside, the outside, everything. So what I have to do is take my fingers around the entire perimeter, take my tools, I'm pressing the fondant back down on itself and smoothing my cuts. So I guess I'm glad that this happened, because I'm sure a lot of people run into this issue. But if your fondant is too soft like this and you try to cut stuff out, look, it's a nightmare. It takes forever. It probably is better if I just go back and add some more Tylose, roll it out, and let it sit. But right now I just don't have the time to do that. So I'm just going to smooth this all out. Now that that's done, I just want to realign it on top of here to make sure that the lettering is in the correct position. I'm not going to wrap it up or anything, just set it aside for a little bit while I work on the other decorations. All right, now I have this strip cutter. I can find this and link it below or something similar. So now I'm going to cut out the black and the white stripes. I'm going to make sure that this is wide enough and put this on top, and it is. So again, this fondant is rolled out super thin. It has the Tylose powder mixed in with it, and it's holding its shape. And I just want to cut a bunch of strips out, so I'm pressing it down to the board. This fondant is pretty stiff. Would have been nice if my purple fondant was this stiff, but whatever. So now I have a roller here, and I could just roll it back and forth on top. So it's going to cut the fondant. You want to make sure that the plastic shows through the strips so you get clean cuts. All right, now flip it over, tap it out. And I'll do the same thing a couple more times, making sure I have enough strips. And same thing, I have some white fondant. This fondant is a little softer than the black, so this might be a little easier to cut. So I'm gonna press this down. Yes, look how much easier. So sometimes there's a little too much Tylose in there, and sometimes there's not enough. Now I have a piece of white fondant rolled out super thin, and just making sure that the circle fits on top, and it does. So I want to take a little bit of water and wet the entire part where the stripes are going to go. And I'm just going to alternate black and white. Make sure that the next strip underneath is pressed up against the strip above. So I'm just pushing it up. That way there's no spaces, and then I can press it down to seal it. And I want to take the circle and put it on top and cut it out. Now, usually I trace with the Dresden tool, but something like this has like, it's raised and it has texture to it, and it's going to be difficult to trace without ruining the fondant. So what I like to do is take a needle tool. So I want to put this on top. I have to turn it towards me so I could see. I want to make sure that I have, if possible, black at the top and at the bottom. I guess it really doesn't matter. And I'm just going to hold it in place with my left hand. The fondant is going to start to stick to my needle tool, so I want to have this wet paper towel handy. And I'm just going to trace around the perimeter, poking holes. See, it just moved. Ugh! This is one of those days. Oh my gosh, why is this happening? So see, the fondant started sticking to the needle tool and it pulled it away a little bit. So I just want to make sure that I keep wiping the tool so the fondant isn't sticking. All right, maybe a little difficult to see, but I have a dotted line now that I can use my X-Acto knife to cut out. Now, I don't want to just drag, because if I do that, I could mess up the fondant. So again, cutting on the inside of the shallow line, I'm sawing up and down just to make a shallow cut. I'm not cutting all the way down to the board yet. I just want to get the line first, and then I'll use the line as a guide to cut the entire thing out. And like always, after I cut anything out, just taking my finger, smoothing the cuts. And now I want to put it on a purple background. So grabbing my purple fondant that is rolled out really thin, get a little bit of water on the back. Either you have a circle cutter that's big enough to cut another circle around it, or again, having my wet paper towel handy and just cut an even border. Does this make you think of Beetlejuice? I feel like this would be good for a Beetlejuice cake. All right, so now I want to put the name on. There's a couple ways you could do this. So you have to decide how you want the stripes to be. If you want them to be straight up and down, then you put the name on like this. Or if you want them horizontal, I'm going to go with diagonal, and because I think that looks cool. And get it in the correct position. So now I have a little bit of water and paintbrush. I want to make sure this is in the correct position. Maybe I can even curve it up a little bit, which I kind of like that. That looks cute. So I'm going to go with that. All right. And now I get these at Michael's. I can link them below. I like these paintbrushes because it has a flat end and I can use it to lift up anything that I want to paint. So I'm painting up onto the purple, and then I'm going to put it back down onto the black and white. So again, lifting it up, painting up on the purple, make sure you don't get too much water, and press it down. And then I'm going to try to do that. Well, I'm going to do that for the entire name. Just putting this on top of this paper because it's easier to move. All right, and now I just want to jazz this up a little bit. It looks a little plain. She is doing teal and pink in the cake as well. I just want to do a couple hearts. Now, you can get little heart cutters if you want. I don't feel like doing that. So again, I have fondant, pink and teal rolled out really thin, and I'm just going to freehand it, just cutting out some hearts. And just getting a little bit of water behind and sticking it on. Now you could do, you know, stars or polka dots or whatever, but I just chose to go with hearts. And now that I said polka dots, I think I'm gonna do a few polka dots too, just to bring in this hot pink color that's in the cake. So again, rolled it out really thin, and I have a number 10 tip, and I'm just gonna cut out a few. Adorable. I'm not ready to put this on the cake yet, so I have a 6-inch cake dummy. This is going on a 6-inch cake. I have push pins in the very bottom to help prevent it from sliding around. And I'm just going to slide it on here. That way it's going to dry with the curve to it. If you don't have a cake dummy, then you could just put it in a Ziploc bag so it doesn't dry out until you're ready to put it on the cake. All right, now I'm ready to put this on the cake, and it has been drying with the curve to it on this dummy. This bow is going to be off to the side, and I just want it on here like this. Now, what do you do if you have a decoration that's a little on the heavier side and you're not sure that piping gel or icing will hold it on? I'm going to show you. So first I'm going to get a clean paper towel. That way I'm going to set this upside down on here once I have the icing and the piping gel on the back. What I want to do, I have some piping gel on a paintbrush, and I'm going to put piping gel around the perimeter. This way I can get it to stick to the cake without anything oozing out of the sides. If I just put icing all the way to the edges, the icing could possibly ooze out. And now I have some icing, the same color that I iced that bottom tier with. And I'm just going to get a little bit and put the icing in the middle. In order to prevent heavier decorations from falling, you need to put toothpicks behind it. But what I don't want to do is stick toothpicks straight in, because there's a chance that it could still fall off. I want to angle them down into the cake. And I have to make sure that they're pushed far enough in that it's not going to poke out the front. I know that this is going to be big enough to cover the toothpicks. If you have a smaller decoration, you need to make sure that the toothpicks are going to be behind it. And I'll do this on an angle. Do you see how I'm sticking them in this way and not straight? So I'm going to put them down on an angle and push them in pretty far. So you just want the tips sticking out. So do you see, by angling them down, it's sticking up and it's going to hold the decoration on. If it was sticking straight out, there's still a chance that it could fall off, but this is really going to anchor it in. And then, so I'm centering it, and making sure it's in the correct position. And now I'm pressing it down so it hooks onto those toothpicks. And that was good. This piece is thick enough so those toothpicks are not poking through. And I'm just pressing it against the cake and make sure that it's completely sealed the whole way around. So even if the icing or the piping gel starts to fail, those toothpicks are still underneath there and they're going to be able to hold that onto the cake. So there you go. How cute is that? I'm going to put the final product over here. Now this was made to look like a little, what's the word? Nail polish bottle. The sizes, the top tier is 3-layer 4-inch and the bottom tier is 3-layer 6-inch. So unfortunately, I did not film how I make the rest of this entire cake. However, I do have a video showing you how I make the big bow, and I will link that below as well. And I just want to say, this gave me a lot of issues. I think I rushed into it. I didn't let the fondant set because I wanted to film this because I have a lot of other things going on. So you saw what happens when I have the fondant that is still too soft. It is a pain in the butt to try to cut things out of fondant when your fondant is too soft. What I should have done is stop what I was doing, added some more Tylose powder, knead it in, roll it out, let it sit until it becomes harder. It is so much easier to do all of my decorations that I teach you when your fondant has Tylose in it and it sets harder. Now, I've had a lot of people I've had a lot of people tell me that their fondant is not hard no matter what they do. And I find that if you purchase fondant from the store, I've used Wilton fondant before, it's super soft. I feel like no amount of Tylose powder that you add to that fondant is going to get it to the right consistency. That's why I recommend making the marshmallow fondant. I have videos on how I make the fondant and I will link that below. So I do recommend using marshmallow fondant when you do your decorations. So I think that's it. If you have any questions or comments, leave them below. And you can follow me on socials and check out my website. It's listed in the description below as well. And if you want to stick around, you can watch these 2 videos next and hit subscribe and the bell if you haven't already. Please like this video if you liked it. Thank you so much for watching, and remember, it's cake. Even though the fondant is annoying sometimes, still try to have some fun. I'll see you on the next one. Bye.